Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by. Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by.
This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by Tower Electronics. For connectors, cables, and more, call 920-435-2973 or visit pl-259.com. And by the Ham Station. Get your new radio or antenna by calling 800-729-4373 or go to hamstation.com.
It's Ham Radio.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Ham Talk Live, episode number 16. Joe Eisenberg, K0NEB, the Kit Guy, recorded live on Thursday, June 2nd, 2016. I'm your host, Neil Rapp, WB9VPG. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Ham Talk Live. Tonight on the show, Joe Eisenberg, K0NEB, the kit building editor at CQ Magazine, is here to talk about the latest in kit building. We'll take your calls live in just a few minutes. Last week on the show, 2013 Newsline Young Ham of the Year Padraig Lysandru, KC9UUS, was here to talk about life since the award, including his internships at SpaceX and being on the build team of a nano satellite named Violet. If you missed the show, you can download it at any time at hamtalklive.com or on Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn, or YouTube. If you missed the Ham Talk Live shirt sale, that ended a couple of days ago, but we will do a second order later on in the summer, so feel free to check back on our Facebook page or Twitter feed or the website. But I do have a few remaining from the staff order, so I don't have all the sizes and all the different ones, but I do have a few. So if you want, you can message me and see if I have the one that you want. Otherwise, we'll be doing another order later on in the summer. After the second commercial break, be ready to call in with your kit questions. You can call us on Skype at the username HamTalkLive or by telephone. The number is 812-NET-HAM1. That's 812-638-4261, and you can also send a question via Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @HamTalkLive. Next, Joe Eisenberg, K0NEB, right after this word from the Ham Station, right here on Ham Talk Live.
This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by the Ham Station. For 35 years, the Ham Station has brought new and used radios, antennas, accessories, and equipment to the amateur radio community. Give Jeff or Dan a call at 1-800-729-4373 or order online at hamstation.com. Hamstation carries all the major brands like ICOM, Yaesu, and Kenwood. Shop from a wide selection of radio scanners, MFJ accessories, Heil Sound products, Mirage and Ameritron amplifiers, Cushcraft antennas, and more. Easy online shopping and fast shipping are waiting for you at hamstation.com or call 1-800-729-4373. The Ham Station, proud to sponsor this episode of Ham Talk Live.
5 out of 4 people have trouble with fractions. Now, here's Neil Rapp with more Ham Talk Live.
Welcome back to Ham Talk Live. The Ham Station has you covered for both new and used equipment. Give Dan or Jeff a call at 800-729-4373 or go to hamstation.com. Be sure to listen to the show every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on hamtalklive.com. Also, check out our Facebook page and Twitter feed. Just search for Ham Talk Live. Joe Eisenberg K0NEB is an expert in kit building. He's the longtime kit building editor at CQ Magazine and often makes presentations and offers kit builds at Hamfest conventions and club meetings, including the Dayton Hamvention and the Huntsville Hamfest. Joe started ham radio at age 14 and has been licensed since 1969. He is also well known for his picture shows of Hamvention, his famous Dr. Seuss hat that he only wears at Dayton. Maybe we'll have time to talk about that. And Joe lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, and is an avid Cornhusker fan. He works in the IT industry for his day job. But Joe, thanks so much for being on Ham Talk Live tonight.
Well, good evening, Neil, and hello from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, it was great to see you at Hamvention for just a minute or so. But maybe we'll talk about some Hamvention stuff a little later on.
And I got to see you when you were 5 years old at the Kenwood booth.
Yeah, I was actually telling Joel over at the Kenwood booth about that. That was the place where I was when I was a little kid signing QSL cards and everything. So,
in fact, I remember them giving you a 520.
Yeah, I found the receipt for that the other day. And my mom had passed away here a couple months ago, and well, not a couple months ago, a month ago or so. Anyway, we were going through some stuff and found the receipt for the 520 that they wrote no charge on. It was pretty cool. So what's the new stuff going on in kit building? What's the latest going on in kit building these days?
Well, there's a lot of kits coming from a lot of sources. Now, of course, in the early 90s when Heathkit went out, they were the biggest source of kits. And the one that had the most kits in terms of numbers of kits was Ramsey Electronics from that point on. And as of January 1st, they got out of the business. So everybody's saying, well, who else has a lot of kits? Well, they come from all sorts of places. There are, of course, private builders, as well as organizations such as the 4-State QRP Group has a whole bunch of neat kits like the Ozark Patrol, which is a regenerative receiver where you solder the parts onto the back of the board that's the front panel. So for a beginning kit builder, it's pretty cool because you don't have holes to put the wires through. Instead, you solder them to pads and trim them there. And it's easy to desolder that by simply tucking the soldering iron under the part and lifting it up. So 4-State QRP has several kits that are built in that style. Some receivers, transmitters, and stuff for QRP. There is QRPkits.com, which has a huge variety of QRP radios, including transceivers with digital display, and a lot of simple kits they call their new Easy Kits that just came out that are, I would say, easily built in an hour or so, some less than that. And you go all the way up to Elecraft, who makes some pretty high-end kits. Now, the K2 transceiver has been around for quite a while. And although it's not really inexpensive, it is still a part-by-part, you solder each piece, all-band, all-mode transceiver. And with a lot of the features that you'd expect on a good radio, and some of the best performance in the receiver business on the K2. There are modular kits like the KX3 and the K3 from Elecraft that you put together but you don't solder, which is still useful because you learn about what's inside the radio. But they still make the KX1, which is a portable handheld CW transceiver, and the K1, which is another portable CW transceiver. And there's a company called DZ Kits, and they're from Colorado, and they have the Sienna XL, which is a full-featured multi-band transceiver that you can get with options from 20 milliwatts to 100 watts. In fact, I would say that the two best sets of manuals are the Elecraft and the DZ kits. I think they are probably some of the more well-documented kits out there. 4-state QRP kits have nice manuals and as well. A lot of the kit makers, besides those two big ones, have the manuals as a download, as a PDF. And so you download the manual and print it yourself. That way, if they make any changes or updates, they don't have to change a bunch of books. And you can read the manual before you order the kit. So there's a lot of kits. I can't put my finger on the best ones. Another source of simple kits to get going is QRPME.com. And that's Rex, W1REX, and he makes the Tuna Tin series of kits based on the original Tuna Tin by Doug DeMaw from ARRL. So the kits that are out there come from a wide variety of sources. There are QRP clubs, like I said, that like 4-state, that actually finance their conventions by the sale of kits. So I can't put my finger on which one is the very best, but there's some very high quality kits there.
Now, one of the things I heard you talking about on the Elecraft rig was that I'm not sure if it's all of them or one of them is the test equipment for the rest of the build.
Yeah, the K2, they have you build the front panel first because it has basically a digital display that's a frequency counter and can measure voltages and things like that. It's kind of an amazing way to do it. And so the K2, actually the front panel is the test equipment to align the rest of the radio.
Yeah, that sounded like a really cool idea. And of course, documentation is, like you said, is always a real valuable thing. And, you know, when I was growing up building the Morse code keyer, and I think I actually built a cruise control, if I remember right, from Heathkit. You know, those Heathkit manuals were just always fabulous, but they always would have that sheet, you know, of changes, and then, you know, sometimes 2 or 3.
Yes.
And so you had to make sure that you hit those corrections to the manual, but they always did have very clear directions, and it made it really easy to build. So those are some of the best kits out there. What would you, for transceivers, what would you suggest for beginners that are just kind of learning, like maybe a clock kit or, you know, something simple just to start identifying parts and start to learn, you know, which way a diode goes in and that kind of thing? What would you say would be the best ones for that?
Well, there's all sorts of simple ones out there. I would say some of the kits from QRP guys are real simple. They're like a CW keyer and paddle. And from Rex, W1REX, he has one called the Little Squall, which is kind of a fancier version of the Pixie, which is a CW transceiver, very simple. And the circuit board is labeled with all the different stages on it. So you not only put the parts on the board, but you know what stage those parts belong to. So you learn radio along with it. So that would be a good one, the Little Squall. There's a company called, I'm trying to remember the exact name, but their webpage is vakits.com, vakits.com. And they have things like a crystal tester and crystal oscillator, and a lot of things that like flashlights and sequence and things like that with LEDs. That's probably a really good choice for a beginner that just wants to solder parts on a board and make something work. The Chinese Pixie also comes to mind because those cost around $4, and it's a great club buy. And it's a simple 40-meter CW transceiver that shouldn't take more than about an hour and a half or 2 hours for a beginning builder to put together.
Excellent. Those sound like some great choices. Now, you mentioned, some of the kit makers going out of the business, like Electronic Rainbow and Ramsey. And one of my favorites from Ramsey was the old radar zapper. where when radar detectors were big, you could build this little CW transmitter that was up in the 5 gigahertz range, I think it was.
It was actually 10 gigahertz.
10 gigahertz,
and it looked like a garage door opener.
Yeah, and I still have mine. I still have that.
Well, I had one, and I called it my tractor beam, because if somebody zapped around me and I saw a detector on their dash, I'd push that button, and it was like a tractor beam. You could pull him back.
Yeah, and they even in the instructions had this game that you got, 2 points for brake lights and 5 points if they pulled over, and that was really
about
good.
Microwave diodes and microwave circuits, so it had its use, and you could. It actually had a legitimate use, and that was testing those kind of receivers, as well as automatic door openers would work with that as well.
Yeah, that was a really cool kit, and so Ramsey's gotten out of those kits, but Joe just gave you some good places to find some of those kits.
You can still get some of the Ramsey kits. They're still available on Amazon.com, and you just search for Ramsey Electronics or Ramsey kits, and whatever they have left is being sold on Amazon right now.
Now, did you ever build the service monitor?
No, I did not.
Yeah, they had the service monitor that they would offer in kit form, and I can't imagine having that kind of a build, but they had it in kit form, so you could just buy it that way.
I just never decided to take the time to build one of those.
Yeah, that'd be a massive undertaking.
But it would have been a great addition to my bench.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I read an article here online just a week or two ago about the Shack is back. That Radio Shack has come out of bankruptcy, but they're in a very different state. And for a lot of years, my big complaint was, well, all the parts are gone, and it's just radio controlled cars and cell phones and gadgets and stuff, and it got to the point where, if I had to go fix the repeater, I couldn't just run to Radio Shack and get the parts anymore. And now they're saying that they're going after the maker market, and that this guy that wrote the opinion piece was saying, good for Radio Shack and hello, Heathkit, where are you? Because Heathkit's trying to make a comeback. And so can you comment on that a little bit and
sure.
Tell us what's going on with that?
Actually, it was a little over a year ago when everybody was making raids on Radio Shack stores with all the bargains when they were closing things out.
Yeah, I bought $400 worth of parts at a Radio Shack that was going out in Greenwood for $31. Yeah, that's my part collection at school.
Yeah, I picked up for like $100. I picked up like 3 or 4 soldering irons and boxes that were those 15 or 20 foot or whatever of RG58 coax assemblies, and then those 2 assortment boxes they had of parts and stuff. I got all that for a lot less than what I would have paid, and it's great. I'm still using that stuff. And it was a great bargain, but it also tells you that they did have Arduino stuff and a couple of things for the Raspberry Pi before they went bankrupt. And now they seem to be looking back at it. The only thing is that about 70% of their stores are Radio Shack Sprint stores. So they're primarily the Sprint phone products, but they do carry a variety of the regular Radio Shack products in there. But it's much smaller variety of stuff than you used to see before. And then there are a handful of stores that are traditional Radio Shack that I don't know if they even have the cell phones in them anymore, that are more traditional Radio Shacks. Here in Lincoln, we have just one of each, the phone one and the regular one. And I have not been in there lately to take a look again. I was there about 6 months ago, though. And like I said, the traditional one was still pretty traditional, but it just didn't have as many merchandise items as they used to have. But they were carrying more stuff that was aimed at Arduino and Raspberry Pi users. Heathkit has reconstituted itself. Somebody actually bought the rights to the copyrights on the original intellectual property and the logo and so forth. And he's out in Silicon Valley. And so far, he's come out with a TRF AM radio kit, which sells for $149.95. So it's $150 for a relatively simple AM radio. And he has two versions, one that you solder and one that you don't. And then he has a version of what's called the Ventenna. They don't call it that, but it's a 2 meter and 440 antenna that clamps to your vent on your house. So you can have an outside VHF, UHF antenna that meets neighborhood restrictions. And that's also $150. And so that's the only two real new products I've seen, other than some replacement assemblies and upgrade boards for certain hi-fi equipment that Radio Shack came out with years ago. Not Radio Shack, Heathkit did, as well as a replacement set of cups for their anemometer and things like that.
Yeah, I want to say it was a cruise control that I built for somebody actually when I was a kid. You know, there was just an unlimited number of kits that they had, and so it'll be interesting to see. I
had a friend
if this guy comes with
years
that.
Ago.
Oh wow, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they revive, a lot more than just those two. So, well, we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how that goes. Well, it's time to take our final break. We'll be back to take your calls for Joe Eisenberg K0NEB right after this message from Tower Electronics.
This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by Tower Electronics. Tower Electronics has been the Ham's dime store since 1978, bringing connectors, antennas, cables, and other parts to the world. Scott and Jill travel the country bringing their store to you at Hamfest, but you can also order online at pl-259.com or by calling 920-435-2973. Stock up on those supplies like PL259 and end connectors, audio cables, mobile antennas, and ham sticks. Their silver-plated end connectors are even in use on the International Space Station. Tower Electronics is a dealer for MFJ, Comet, Daiwa, OPEC, Workman, and Ham Pro Technologies. Tower Electronics online at pl-259.com, proud to sponsor this episode of Ham Talk Live.
Ham Talk Live with Neil Rapp. My shack are yours.
We'd like to thank Scott and Jill at Tower Electronics for sponsoring the show tonight so we can bring you Ham Talk Live. They'll be at the Princeton, Illinois Hamfest on Sunday. And next week they'll be in Newberry, Michigan. Call 920-435-2973 or visit their website at pl-259.com. And they have all kinds of stuff for kit builders, right, Joe?
Yes, they do. In fact, I always tell kit builders to always have on hand plugs, jacks, connectors, power supplies, all the things you need when you get a kit done to plug it into the outside world. And they have it all. And they are my first go-to at a Hamfest when I see them there. They just know to hand me a box and start filling it up because they know that's where I get my plugs, jacks, and connectors. Scott and Jill do a wonderful job at Tower Electronics.
Oh, absolutely. They came to the Hamfest that I ran in Evansville for every single year it existed, and were always helpful in providing the club with some things and my school club with things, and just fabulous people. So Tower Electronics, pl-259.com or 920-435-2973. So shout out to Scott and Jill for that, and connectors, cables, plugs, you name it, adapters, they've got it. So be sure to visit them when they are in your area or online. And be sure to listen to the show every Thursday night at 9 p.m., brought to you by Tower Electronics right here on Ham Talk Live. If you missed that show, you can download it from the website and most popular podcasting sites. Well, it's time for more of your calls. So call us. You can do an audio call on Skype at hamtalklive, or you can call us by the old twisted pair, as they used to call it, the telephone at 812-NET-HAM1. That's 812-NET-HAM1, 638-4261. You can also tweet us at hamtalklive and let us know what your questions are. So before we get too far away here, tell the audience the story about the Dr. Seuss hat. Now, I know you only wear that at Dayton, but tell the audience the story of the Dr. Seuss hat.
Well, actually, it's only been worn one other place, and that was 2 years ago when I went to Friedrichshafen. But 1 year I was sick and did not make Hamvention. And so the following year I still wasn't doing really well and didn't go to any of the hospitality suites and so forth in the evening. In fact, I kind of slept in the morning and didn't get there till later also. And the second year that I had come back, people were saying, I missed you twice in a row. They'd tell me on the air, I missed you 2 years in a row. And I said, well, I was gone one, but I had my little red ball cap on. Well, finally, one guy on the air said, well, maybe you need a bigger hat so I can see you in the crowd because I don't want to miss seeing you. And so I took it to heart. And when I was at the state fair a few months later, I saw these Dr. Seuss hats, but they were not quite Dr. Seuss hats. They looked like it, but they had kind of a spiral stripes on it. And so I went to a store in Omaha, which sells a lot of Halloween costumes, and I found the actual Dr. Seuss hat. And then I had it stitched with my name and call letters on it, and extra felt put on it to mount the antenna that goes up the back. And it actually helps because my friends that listen to me on VHF or UHF at Dayton can usually copy me pretty good because it works a lot better than having the rubber duck on your hip.
Yeah.
And so the following year I brought it with me, but I didn't put it on. I put back on my little regular red ball cap again with my name and call letters on it like everybody else wears. And people were saying, well, where's the hat? We need to be able to find you. And so I went back out to my car and I brought the cap in and put it on. And ever since then, it's been a tradition. And next year will be the 20th year that I've worn the hat.
Wow, 20 years with the Dr. Seuss hat. But it does. It makes it really easy to find you. I found you all the way across the food area this year just from that hat. So I knew, I got to go down there and catch Joe real quick.
I've had people who were looking for me and didn't know what frequency to call me on crawl up into the chairs in the arena, and they'd see me come in and they'd come downstairs, or they'd spot me across the ball arena or something. And so it's helped. So I don't have to go searching for somebody. They all find me.
But the thing is, then, when I see you at Huntsville, there's no hat.
That's right. It's just a Dayton tradition. Of course, if you look at Huntsville, it's probably easier to find somebody there than it is in Dayton because it's all in one room.
Well, true.
So it is a lot easier, and there's a lot less interference, so it's more easy to find me on UHF or something. But unless I'm on DMR, then I'm hiding from everybody. But and I'm always taking pictures, and you'll always see the camera with me. I've been taking pictures since my first Hamvention in 1975, and I've kind of become the official photographer for the Hamvention. And about 4 years ago, they flew me to Dayton to present to DARA my old Dayton pictures and videos that go back in the 70s and 80s and so forth, and to explain to them why I make these slideshows that are set to music. And the reason I did that was because every year since my first visit, I would give a presentation to my local club here in Lincoln and in Omaha and surrounding clubs here in Nebraska and Iowa and at different hamfests and conventions all year long, saying what happens at Dayton and what it takes to go there. And it was a way I found to show a lot of pictures in a short amount of time to give them a really good idea and make it entertaining by setting it to music.
Absolutely. Love those. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Want to remind people that we're taking your calls live right now. The number is 812-NET-HAM1, 812-NET-HAM1, or you can tweet us at hamtalklive or on Skype at hamtalklive. So if you have questions about kit building or anything else for Joe, why, give us a call right now. And the Facebook group even has the top 20 countdown of Joe Eisenberg picture videos. So every year you take a song and you put all the pictures in with the song, and you have a theme going.
Yeah. And
so tell us about that.
Like this year's was Turn Up the Radio. So what did you see in the video? You saw a lot of large amplifiers and big radios. Yes, you saw a whole variety of stuff, but the emphasis was on the big stuff. Each one has a theme. I did Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and I, of course, followed up with The Boys Are Back in Town. I did Taking Care of Business several years ago, which covers the business end, buying and selling at Dayton. I try to make each one have a theme. And next year's is probably going to be radio waves, and the emphasis on that will be antennas. So I try to come up with a theme, and I hear these songs when I'm driving back and forth because I live in Lincoln, but I work in Omaha. And so I have about an hour each way each day, 50 miles, where I'm listening to music on the radio. And sometimes the song will just stick in my craw, and I'll just say, that might work. And I will come up with one. Now, a couple years ago, I had one all picked out, and I probably still will use it in a future year. But I was on my way to Branson with a friend of mine riding with me. We were carpooling down there for OzarkCon. And while driving, we kept hearing Sharp Dressed Man. And he kept saying, Joe, I love your slideshows. Why don't you make one out of that? And I said, well, it has nothing to do with radio. I can't do a radio theme. And he says, you don't have to. Just make it fun. And so I had everybody doing the gesture that ZZ Top does.
Oh,
in the old 1980s rock video, and made that into my slideshow. So that was kind of a fun one.
Now I'll tell you that one of the things that I noticed this year that I don't always get to see was after Contest University, when I went down to the lobby at the Crown Plaza, because I normally don't go down there, but this year I did because of some parking things. And all these guys started coming in their suits and ties and everything because they were going to the ARRL banquet and keynote on Thursday night. And so they were all sharply dressed. Mm-hmm. So you might be able to do that. Yeah,
that was the donor dinner. And I've been to that before. And so you do see a lot of sharp dressed people on that. I kind of took a lighter look at it with my show. Freeze Frame, which I did a couple years ago, looks at photography. How many people are taking pictures like I am? So every year has kind of a theme, and we try to follow it. And if you listen carefully to the words of the songs and look at the pictures, you'll see that it actually ties in. And then there's one that has a real sad ending, and that is Mr. Blue Sky. I actually showed the teardown of Hamvention, and that was because I had like a 6:30 flight that year, so I had the time to do it. And but there's some photographic tricks in some of them, like in Radio Gaga. Everybody thinks somehow I was in the cockpit of the plane to take the shots because you're looking straight down the runway and you're looking into the cockpit. And it was simply a juxtaposition of shots taken out my window. And when we crossed an active runway, I shot down the runway so that it looks like we're going straight down it. And so it's kind of fun. It's kind of playing with editing photos and stuff like you would with video. And it gives kind of the illusion that you're flying the plane there. And like this year, we kind of did a fun thing. We did kits on a plane. And that was when I actually built a kit with Rex, who makes the tuna tin kits and so forth. He was sitting next to me on the flight, and kind of by coincidence. And we got to go over the kit that we were going to do together at the world's biggest build-a-thon. So that was a lot of fun. And so you get to see kits on a plane in the slideshow.
Very good. So if you want to see these, if you haven't seen those before, go to YouTube, youtube.com, and search for
Joe Husker. Joe Husker is, Joehusker is the channel name. And you can also search for K0NEB.
Okay. So those are always great to watch, and enjoy those greatly. So you have to check those out too. 812-NET-HAM1, 812-NET-HAM1 if you have kit building questions or questions for Joe about the pictures from Dayton or anything else, give us a call. Or you can tweet, or you can Skype at hamtalklive. Want to go back to the kits for a moment. Now it escapes me, of course, as soon as I say that. But if you were looking at a kit to do for a large group, like you said, the world's biggest build-a-thon, what would you suggest for something like that?
Simplicity is best. Obviously, when you have a larger number of builders, you want to make it as simple as you can, and yet entertaining, and have at least a variety of components, like an IC and a couple of transistors and a few resistors and a few caps, so that they get an idea of how to handle each different kind of part, because you want at least one of each of the major groups of components. So I would look at that when you're choosing a kit, because you don't want to make it too hard, like having to wind a toroid or something, unless you have plenty of time, like an all-day kit build. There's a kit that's relatively simple to put together, but it takes some preparation to do it as a group. And that is, and I can't remember who puts it out, but it is a direction-finding kit. And it's put out by somebody in Ohio. And you make kind of a bow tie antenna out of bent coat hangers and solder lugs, and you hook it to this board, and you put it on your receiver, and you hear a tone, and when the tone nulls, you're looking the direction of the transmitter. And so it lets you teach both kit building and fox hunting. And I remember the name now. It's called a Handy Finder, HANDIFINDER. The Handy Finder runs on a 9-volt battery, and each kit does not come with the wire for the connection to the radio, nor does it come with the coat hanger, metal coat hanger that you bend to make the bow tie. But you can also use stiff copper wire as well. And in fact, household electrical wire works really good for the antenna, the stiff stuff like you'd put in a house. And the kit's relatively inexpensive. I think in bulk it's about $24 each. Has a variety of parts, goes together very quickly, and then you get to have two events. You have a kit build, and then you get to teach fox hunting. And so that would be a good group build.
Oh, that sounds like a really good deal. We just had a transmitter hunt, fox hunt, on Tuesday for the school, and they did a good job with it. We had several that had been on one before, so they did really well with that. But that would be a good project for them. I remembered what I was going to talk about before the show. We were talking about the old spring kits where you would take a wire and bend a spring and put it inside of one of the springs to connect it. Like I had the Radio Shack 150 in one kit, and you said that you started out on something similar when you were 7.
It was I was 9 years old, and it was a 40 in one kit. And It was a little more difficult type spring terminal and some Fond stock clips and things like that.
But they would have all the parts in there and labeled, and then you would just plug the wires in so that you could connect and disconnect pretty easily. And then I know they started coming out with these snap kits.
Yeah, they're
where
modular.
the things, would just snap together. So compare and contrast those and what you think of those, and are those spring kits still made by anybody?
Yes, they are. I think Elenco, Lenco, makes some of those, and they're good if they allow you to make more than one item. They have several that only make one thing, like an AM/FM radio, which is okay too. But I kind of prefer the ones that let you make several different circuits, because then you learn that a component can do more than one thing. And so I would look at Elenco, and I can't remember who else carries those. And I think Radio Shack may still offer them mail order.
Okay, very good. Well, I remember, probably 7 years old, 8 years old, something like that. We actually needed a circuit to trigger the push-to-talk on the repeater, because something had gone out, and our repeater was actually a kit. It was one of the Hamtronics.
Hamtronics,
yeah,
yes.
It's actually VHF Engineering, but it was the Hamtronics thing with a different name on it. But somebody in our club had actually built that, and everything was great. And then all of a sudden the King circuit went out, and so my 150-in-1, I wired it up for the Vox circuit, I think it was, and we modified it slightly, and actually had it running the repeater for a week or two until we could get everything working. So that,
it shows the
some
things
good
you learn.
stuff.
Yeah, it shows the things you learn from kit building. And I always tell people that one of the neat things you can do once you've learned about your kit is add to it, improve on it. You might want to adjust different values to see what they do. There's all sorts of things you can do once you learn about the circuits that make up the kit.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity.
And of course, you know how to fix it.
Yeah, and that's always the good part about like building an Elecraft. That's a complicated build, but you learn how to fix it, and you can go in there and repair those things. So it's a great advantage to that.
And that's one of the things I tell my kit building classes, and that is that if you find somebody selling a set of standard parts, like an assortment of quarter-watt resistors, which are probably the most common in kits, or a variety of disc capacitors or NPO capacitors, or electrolytic capacitors, or diodes, or transistors, or ICs that are common in kits, make sure they're values that you would commonly use, and set up some parts bins. You can get them at Harbor Freight or Sears or places like that, and sort them out so that you have them available. I keep those on my bench, because it's terrible to be working through a kit and suddenly find out you need a 10K resistor because you'd lost it, or it was missing, or something like that. And you can just reach up in your tray and pull out one of those and put it in. Or you might find out that, the CW side tone, it can be a little more comfortable pitch to your ears if you substitute a 680 ohm resistor instead of a 1K or something. And so you have those parts on hand.
All great tips from Joe Eisenberg K0NEB, the kit building editor from CQ Magazine. Joe, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
And thank you very much, Neil, and have a wonderful summer.
All right, that's a wrap for this week's edition of Ham Talk Live. I'd like to thank my guest, Joe K0NEB, and all the callers and listeners out there in cyberspace, and invite you back next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, when Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT, joins us from Amateur Radio Newsline from the news desk in New York. For a list of all of our upcoming guests, visit hamtalklive.com. So for now, this is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, saying 7375, and may the good DX be yours.